Memorable Gala is here, and tonight should be no exception. It's a real pleasure to have each one of you here with us this evening. And in case you're one of our new friends, let me tell you that the Media Institute is a nonprofit organization that pursues three important goals: sound communications policy, a strong First Amendment, and excellence in journalism. And these goals are at the very heart of the awards that we're going to present this evening. But first, I certainly want to thank all of our table sponsors here tonight. We're extremely grateful for your very generous support. By supporting this gala, you allow us to keep pursuing the three goals I just mentioned through a wide variety of programs and activities. We're especially grateful to our platinum sponsors, Comcast NBC Universal, the Consumer Technology Association, LG Electronics USA, and Verizon. And we thank our good friends at all of those organizations. And of course, we also thank our gold sponsors, NCTA and Wiley Rhine, plus all of our silver sponsors and friends who have done so much to make this evening possible. I can't tell you how important your support is to us, and I can't thank you enough. I'd like to point out that our Free Speech America Gala is the Media Institute's signature event commemorating Free Speech Week, the national celebration of free speech and free press that takes place every October. This year's Free Speech Week just concluded 3 days ago, and it marked the 20-year anniversary of this event. The Media Institute created Free Speech Week in 2005, and we continue to coordinate it 20 years later. And we're very proud of this track record. I'd like to take just a moment to acknowledge several persons I rely on who have helped make this evening possible, starting, of course, with my colleague, Susanna Coto. Thank you, Susie. My thanks as well to John Taylor and Dave Arland for their video support, and to Anna Yan and Kimberly Falkenhagen for their excellent work with graphics and promotion. We wouldn't be enjoying this wonderful evening without the great teamwork behind it. And speaking of this evening, I do think it will be one to remember. And not just because our centerpiece caught on fire a couple minutes ago. We have a highly distinguished group with our award recipients, Hans Vestberg and Gary Shapiro, our presenters, Tad Brown and Sam Feist, and our featured speaker, Commissioner Olivia Trusty. And I might point out that Gary Shapiro will become only the second person in Media Institute history who has received both our Freedom of Speech Award and our American Horizon Award, which Gary received in 2009. And by the way, in case you were wondering, the only other person was Michael Powell of NCTA. And now to get our program underway, it is my great privilege to introduce our featured speaker. The Honorable Olivia Trusty was nominated to serve as a commissioner of the Federal Communications Commission by President Donald J. Trump, and she was confirmed by the U.S. Senate in June 2025, just several months ago. Prior to joining the FCC, Commissioner Trusty served as a professional staff member on the U.S. Senate Committee on Armed Services under the leadership of U.S. Senator Roger F. Wicker. She previously served as a policy director on the U.S. Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation, and a legislative assistant in the office of U.S. Senator Wicker. Before her tenure as a Senate aide, Commissioner Trusty served as a professional staff member on the U.S. House Committee on Energy and Commerce and a legislative assistant to U.S. Congressman Bob Latta. Commissioner Trusty began her career in the private sector. The commissioner received her BA degree from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and her master's degree from Georgetown University. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our very distinguished featured speaker, Commissioner Olivia Trusty.
Okay, there we go. Good evening, everyone. It is a true honor to join you tonight for the Media Institute's first Free Speech America Gala. Let me begin by thanking the Media Institute for its tireless work in championing free expression and advancing thoughtful communications policy. For decades, the Media Institute has been at the forefront of fostering meaningful dialogue about the intersection of communications, law, and policy. Now, at an event called the Free Speech America Gala, it seems fitting to begin with an issue that has been much in the news: the First Amendment and broadcasting. At the FCC, our regulatory and oversight responsibilities span the media and communications sectors, which means that protecting the First Amendment is paramount to our policy work. Yet, as many of you know, in the broadcasting context, the interplay between constitutional protections for speech and the requirements of the Communications Act can be uniquely complex. Let me offer a short Commissioner Trusty Office original metaphor to help explain some of this complexity. When you think about the First Amendment, imagine a cliff. You walk right up to its precipice. You look down and see exactly where the ground gives way. The danger is obvious, but more importantly, the boundary is clear, uncompromising, and absolute. And for many types of speech protected by the First Amendment, that metaphor isn't too far off. Speech, with the exception of incitement and defamation, among other discrete categories, is protected within the bounds of the First Amendment, and attempts to silence that speech are unlawful. But speech in broadcasting, there isn't a cliff. Instead, imagine the proverbial frozen lake. At first, you step on it. The surface feels solid. But as you continue to move forward, the ice groans underfoot. Cracks spread. You can't always see how thick the ice is beneath your feet or whether it will hold if you take that next step. That's because, under existing precedent, broadcasting is treated differently than most Americans might expect. Yes, the First Amendment still applies, both by its own terms and as confirmed by Section 326 of the Communications Act. But in broadcasting, content-based regulation that would be unthinkable in other contexts is indeed permitted under long-standing doctrine. Congress placed public interest obligations on broadcasters when it entrusted them with use of the public airwaves. Federal law restricts the broadcasting of obscenity, indecency, and profanity. Section 315 of the Communications Act imposes equal opportunity obligations on broadcasters once they grant one candidate for a political office access. And of course, the FCC has a policy against news distortion, which prohibits broadcast station licensees from deliberately manipulating, slanting, or rigging the news. These provisions and others are grounded in the statute and decades of precedent. The Supreme Court has long recognized that the public interest standard is guided by the purposes of the Communications Act and the requirements it imposes. Localism is one such purpose, reflected in Section 307's requirement for fair, efficient, and equitable distribution of service among states and communities. Section 308 of the Act considers the character qualifications for licensees, and there are long lines of commission precedent considering these sorts of issues in the case of broadcast licensees. Courts, too, have historically been more willing to accept regulation of broadcasters' speech as consistent with the First Amendment. In Red Lion, the Supreme Court upheld regulations designed to expand the viewpoints available to the public. In other cases, intermediate scrutiny has applied to restrictions on broadcast content. Many have predicted the Supreme Court would eventually erase that distinction, but that day has not yet come. Until it does, the Commission has a responsibility and indeed an obligation to apply the law as it stands. Even the recent Supreme Court decision in NRA v. Vulo, invoked in connection with broadcasting, does not map neatly onto this terrain. That case addressed a government official who sought to use state power to deter disfavored speech. The Supreme Court reaffirmed that government cannot do indirectly what it is barred from doing directly. But how that principle applies in a space where the FCC can directly regulate content under current precedent is a more difficult question. And thus, walking this frozen lake requires careful judgment. At what point are you still on solid ground, enforcing clear statutory requirements? At what point do the cracks appear, signaling that the ice might not hold? Navigating these questions requires a thoughtful, deliberate approach. For me, the preferred path is clear. When the marketplace, through the choices of individual licensees, advances the public interest, that is the best outcome for the First Amendment, the Communications Act, and our constitutional republic. Most broadcasters take their public interest obligations seriously. Our role should be to foster an environment that empowers them to do so voluntarily. This raises a larger question. How do we create an environment where the marketplace itself produces outcomes that serve the public interest and respect the First Amendment, not just in broadcasting, but across the communications landscape? Well, as an FCC commissioner for the past 4 months, these are questions I ask every day about where law, policy, and technology intersect and how our choices affect the ways in which Americans communicate, listen, and connect. Whether audio or video, voice or data, wired or wireless, the Commission has an important role, with the ultimate goal being this: to ensure that all Americans have access to and benefit from advanced communications. One of the most powerful ways to achieve this goal and to link tonight's honorees is through innovation. Hans Vestberg is receiving the American Horizon Award for his visionary leadership in advancing Verizon's pioneering 5G network strategy. And Gary Shapiro is receiving the Freedom of Speech Award for his free speech advocacy, which so often highlights the role of technology in expanding expression. Their work illustrates that innovation is not just about faster networks or smarter devices. It is about strengthening the foundations of free speech. Innovation creates new opportunities to connect. Broadband opened new doors for remote work, learning, education, and healthcare. Innovation expands reach. Wireless and satellite technologies extend connectivity services to the hardest to reach areas. Innovation makes for better use of scarce resources. Advances like 5G network slicing and the promise of 6G enable us to stretch spectrum further. And innovation restores trust. Authentication tools are giving consumers confidence to answer their phones in an ongoing fight against illegal robocalls. So how do we ensure continued U.S. leadership in communications innovation? First, we must maintain a regulatory environment that encourages it. That means eliminating unnecessary legal barriers, streamlining outdated rules, and modernizing permitting to support investment and deployment. Second, we must use federal resources wisely. Spectrum must be put to its highest and best use. Universal service programs should embrace the most effective technologies to close the digital divide. And Congress and the Commission must work together to ensure these programs remain financially sustainable. Third, we must lead on the international stage. Working with the State Department and NTIA, the FCC can help advance U.S. priorities in global forums, whether for next-generation wireless or satellite services or emerging technologies like artificial intelligence. A unified U.S. strategy abroad is critical not only for our economic competitiveness and national security, but for promoting values like free speech worldwide. And fourth, we must spotlight and celebrate innovation wherever it occurs, whether in accessibility, education, health, or new business models. The government can help set the stage, but it is the innovators, the entrepreneurs, the engineers, and the visionaries who perform on it. At the FCC, we are committed to using every tool at our disposal to promote U.S. leadership in technological innovation across broadcast, broadband, and beyond. As the President summed up in his White House AI Action Plan, to secure our future, we must harness the full power of American innovation. And that brings me back to where I began tonight. Free speech and innovation are not separate stories. Indeed, they are two sides of the same coin. Free expression fuels innovation because ideas only flourish when they can be tested, debated, and challenged. And innovation safeguards free expression because new technologies give people more ways to speak, to listen, and to be heard. One way to cross the ice with greater confidence is to follow in the footsteps of those who went before you. Many of you in this room have deep experience and long considered views on free speech and broadcasting. I sincerely welcome your insights when these questions come before the Commission. When the ice is thin, thoughtful guidance is invaluable. With that, thank you so much again to the Media Institute for your leadership and your unwavering commitment to free speech. And congratulations to tonight's award recipients. Clear proof that innovation will continue to shape the future of communications and expression in America. Thank you all so much.
In the 1970s, he was general counsel, a commissioner, and chairman of the Federal Communications Commission. Since then, he has been one of the most highly regarded and highly respected attorneys in Washington. And of course, Dick serves with great distinction as chairman of the Media Institute's Board of Trustees. Dick is deeply committed to this organization and what we stand for. He works in many ways, both out front and behind the scenes, for the good of the Institute. And as you might expect, he's a great help and source of wisdom to me personally. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our Master of Ceremonies, the Chairman of the Board, Mr. Dick Wiley.
Well, I feel like the waffle that's just been poured over with syrup. Ladies and gentlemen, we come now to the awards portion of our evening program. And to present the meritorious recipient of the American Horizon Award, I'm very pleased to introduce Tad Brown, who is the Chief Executive of Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment, with perhaps the largest and most impactful asset portfolio in the world, and including such, I think, iconic bands as the New Jersey Devils, the Philadelphia 76ers, NASCAR's Joe Gibbs Racing, and the Prudential Center in Newark. And our guest also has championing Harris Blitzer's role as a force for good by raising millions of dollars to support youth in Philadelphia and Newark. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tad Brown.
Thank you very much, and it is an honor to be here and to be with my friend Hans. I will say that my wife, her entire family are firefighters, and I never thought that I would have to use what they taught me at an awards gala at the head table. So if you're smelling the burning of plastic, it's coming from the table right here in front. But it's an honor to be here. As was mentioned, we have a vast portfolio on a global scale, and one team that I'm sure you all know that my boss, Josh Harris, is a significant participant in is your Washington Commanders. So I think that is, yeah, I want to go for the easy applause at the very beginning, so I appreciate that. But it is something that, as Hans knows, and in another kind of serendipitous moment, Hans and Verizon were the very first partners to come on board with the new regime here in Washington, D.C. So shows his commitment to the community, but is also his friendship and his commitment to HBSE as an organization, and to Josh and to David Blitzer. It's a tremendous honor to be here at such an important event where we celebrate leaders who have made an incredible impact as far as promoting vitality and independence of American media and communications. Tonight, I have the privilege of introducing a great friend and a leader who's done work throughout his career in leveraging communications and technology to advance the betterment of people's lives. Throughout his career, Hans has built a reputation centered around respect for his teammates, for his partners, for his customers, and most notably for the communities that Verizon and he have served in the United States, really all over the world. And as we've grown our partnership with Verizon, I've seen it firsthand, what he does and how he leads and what he expects of his team with the people that they work with. He cultivates relationships through transparency and communication. He ensures that his partners, his teammates, partner with like-minded organizations and brands that aspire to be both innovators and drivers of positive change in their communities, such as here in Washington, not only with the Commanders, but with the Wizards, with Monumental Sports, and with the Capitals, and globally in the biggest events that you can imagine, the NFL, the Super Bowl, the World Cup, building the infrastructure throughout the states, throughout the world for some of the biggest events that we put on. His focus on ensuring that Verizon and its partners are committed to not only building value for customers and employees, but for making a lasting impact for the betterment of the communities that they serve. I've been fortunate to lead organizations in the sports and entertainment industry for over 30 years, and Hans, I can say, is one of the most inspiring leaders and executives I've ever met and that I've ever had the privilege to call my friend. I'm also thrilled to see him being recognized as the recipient for the American Horizon Award for the things that make him an exceptional leader, an exceptional innovator, and an exceptional human being. So with that, I ask you to join me in welcoming and congratulating my friend Hans Vestberg.
Thank you so much. My God. Okay, Thad, firefighter, thank you so much. I know you have many talents, Thad, but that was a new one. Thank you for your fantastic words. I mean, I get moved easy, you know that. So I need to concentrate myself. And starting by thanking, of course, the Media Institute for this evening. It's just amazing honor to receive this award on behalf of Verizon, and I have a lot of my Verizon friends here, so it warms my heart. It warms my heart. It's also what we heard tonight, and the Media Institute has been encouraging free speech, and of course, if you look at the list of people that I got in these awards before, you can only say that you're extraordinary honored to be part of that list of extraordinary talents, including Mr. Gary Shapiro, my friend here, that's going to get his support tonight. As you can hear, I'm not from here. I'm Swedish. I speak Swinglish, as my family say. Born in the northern parts of Sweden, where basically people don't speak so much, so I left it very early on. Had a very troublesome sports career that I had to end pretty early on, and I had to start working. I started to work for a company called Ericsson and checking travel expenses. I worked there for 28 years. I lived in 7 countries. Had an extraordinary journey, and I retired in 2016 and thought that now I've done everything. Somewhere there, Verizon showed up, and I spent my last almost 9 years at Verizon, which has been extraordinary, fantastic company. I don't regret a second to come back from my sort of retirement. Now, as you know, I'm called former because I just stepped down, and it's great to get an award when you have stepped down. You know, you have more time. I can prepare my speech. Usually don't do it. So I'm really excited to speak for at least an hour. No, I will not. What I learned in these 2 enormous companies, Ericsson is enormous, Verizon is enormous, reach so many different stakeholders, customers, employees, society, shareholders, is that the platform you get, you actually need to nurture that platform very well. Not only doing profitable growth, but also doing the right for your communities. I'm proudly standing here and saying that Verizon is the most profitable telecommunication company in the world. But not only that, we're doing good as well. A couple of examples where I came in from the beginning to build 5G and the promise of how much data we're going to use. I can tell you our network has grown 30 to 40% every year since 5G came. Today you stream whatever you have on your phone wherever you are, which never was thought about in 4G. We do broadband on 5G, which we never thought was possible. All that requires enormous investments. And with the support of the board and the stakeholders we have, Verizon in the last 6-7 years has invested $200 billion in infrastructure in the United States. $200 billion. The AI guys are now passing us, but historically we were the biggest guys. They have passed us by miles, but historically guys like us were the biggest investors in infrastructure in this country, and I'm very proud of that. But we not only did that, we also decided that it's basically a human right to be connected today. And there's not only to be connected, you need to get more than connectivity. So one of the biggest programs we have is Verizon Innovative Learning, where we basically provide to underserved schools not only the broadband, we provide them with devices, and we provide them also with a digital STEM program. We have so far educated 9 million students in that program that has been going for 15 years. And our target was 10 million by 2030. As you hear, we're already at 9, so we're going to pass that. So an enormous investment, probably one of the biggest private investment in the world in education. Secondly, we also decided that small and medium businesses are enormously important to us. And especially after the COVID, we decided we need to educate them. We started our small and medium business Digital Ready, where we educate small and medium businesses how to use technology, how to build web pages, how to use it in order to be able to have e-commerce, etc. Our goal is to educate 1 million small and medium businesses. We have so far almost made 500,000. So we have 500,000 left, but it's an important way to use our technology, our strategy, to actually improve for our society. And we also committed to spend $5 billion with small and medium businesses and suppliers throughout the years, coming years, in order to see that we are doing right for us with the platform we have. All this goes along with our strategy to make more money so we can invest more, and we educate the people using it. I'm extraordinarily proud of that. And finally, I also would like to finish by saying that after COVID, I've always said that it shouldn't matter where you're born, who you are, or where you live. you should be able to be connected in this society, because the 21st century's infrastructure is actually mobility, broadband, and cloud, and all the services on top of it. So after COVID, I actually decided I'm going to rally all my friends during my years to see that we are adding people being connected. I called the World Economic Forum. We started something called the Edison Alliance. After some research, we decided we're going to add 1 billion people more in 5 years. Not that they are connected. They need either to be digital education, digital healthcare, or digital banking. Then we're going to count them. We rallied some 350 friends and partners, governments, the largest enterprise on earth. After 3.5 years, almost 4 years, we added 1 billion people more being connected in 2023. And I'm enormously proud of that we could, with the background I had and the background of Verizon, we could support that together with all our colleagues around the world to make that. Remember, it's still 2.6 billion people on this earth that are not connected. They don't have the access that we have. And now in the era of AI, it's going to be even more important to be part of our society. If not, the distance is going to be harder. The digital divide on our earth is still very large, even though the progress we have done the last 5 years is enormous. I would like to thank the Media Institute again for honoring Verizon, all our friends here, for the work that we have done, and I'm extraordinarily proud of that. So once again, thank you so much.
That applause, I think, speaks very much as to what you just delivered, so congratulations. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to present the very highly respected award winner for our Freedom of Speech Award is an old friend and someone that is well known also to this audience. And to introduce him is Sam Feist, who is the CEO of, what is it? And Sam, I think, is actually only the third chief executive of C-SPAN in its 46-year history. Now, Sam is going to, I think, introduce a new programming initiative for C-SPAN, which will bring, I think, to the fore a very important new television show, which hopefully will bring together Republicans and Democrats to find common ground and also maybe compromise on some of the key issues facing our country. And Sam, maybe even opening the federal government. How about that as a starter? So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome this leading communications leader, Sam Feist.
Thank you, Dick, for your service to the Institute and for your service to the country. Congratulations, Hans, and a special thank you to Tad, who really may have just saved this dinner. It was a real fire. It was something to see. He jumped into action. You really did allow us to continue this important evening, so thank you. Thank you for your service as well. It is great to be here with you and with all of the Friends of the Media Institute. It's an organization that stands right at the intersection of two things that we all care deeply about: free expression and an informed public. For decades, the Institute has been a fierce defender of the First Amendment, ensuring that open debate, vigorous journalism, and the free flow of ideas remain the backbone of our democracy. This award tonight is a prestigious award. It has been received by such media luminaries as the legendary Bob Woodward, the legendary Floyd Abrams, and recently by Lester Holt, recently of NBC News. So it's fitting that a friend of this community, Gary Shapiro is the right guy at the right moment. For 30 years at CNN, and then now for this last year at C-SPAN, I've devoted my career to helping Americans see, hear, and understand their government at work. At C-SPAN, we don't interpret democracy, we reveal it. No commentary, no spin, just democracy unfiltered. Sometimes it inspires democracy, sometimes democracy infuriates, frustrates, but it always informs. And that unfiltered transparency, the ability of citizens to see power with their own eyes, is the purest expression of the First Amendment in action. Tonight, we honor someone who has spent his career advancing those same freedoms, ensuring that technology serves not just progress, but the fundamental right to speak, create, and be heard. Gary Shapiro has spent his career defending the right to innovate, connect, and communicate. Before most of us had even a remote control, Gary was defending the legality of the VCR. Yes, it's true, the VCR. When Hollywood wanted to make it illegal. Under Gary's leadership, that case, that controversy went all the way to the Supreme Court, and they won. Thanks to Gary, millions of Americans could finally record Wheel of Fortune or C-SPAN without the fear of breaking the law. Gary and his team convinced the court that taping Jeopardy was actually a constitutional right. And that principle, that technology empowering people should be protected, not punished, has helped guide Gary's entire career. As Commissioner Trusty pointed out so eloquently a few minutes ago, the relationship between technological innovation and the First Amendment, our freedom of speech, is very, very close. For more than 40 years, as the head of the Consumer Technology Association, Gary has been at the very center of every major technology revolution, from CDs and DVDs to the iPod, to smartphones, to smart homes, and even those powerful computers that we now wear on our wrists. Basically, if it plugs in, connects online, runs an app, streams a show, or occasionally talks back to you, Gary probably had something to do with it. And his impact goes far beyond gadgets. In the late 1990s, when most of us were still waiting for our dial-up modems to connect, Gary helped shape the early rules of the commercial internet. He served on a first-of-its-kind Virginia Technology Commission that actually laid the groundwork for what became the internet capital of the world, Northern Virginia. And those forward-thinking policies helped launch the digital economy that we all rely on today. Over the decades, Gary's been an advisor to presidents and prime ministers, testified before Congress dozens and dozens of times. He's written 4 best-selling books: Ninja Innovation, Ninja Future, The Comeback, and Pivot or Die. Now, Gary, Ninja? A second Ninja? Pivot or Die? Why are these book titles getting scarier and scarier and scarier? I can't imagine what's next on the bestseller list for Gary Shapiro. He writes with passion, humor, and principle, and always with the conviction that free speech and free markets go hand in hand. Gary has published more than 1,500 op-eds, always making the same essential point. Innovation and expression thrive only when people are free to question, challenge, and create. That's what makes Gary such a powerful advocate for free speech and for the First Amendment. He believes and lives the idea that the right to speak, to question, and dissent is not a gift from government. It's a responsibility that all of us share. So tonight, we honor a leader who has spent his entire career ensuring that the freedoms that built our democracy also power our innovation, and innovations that in turn power our freedom of speech. It's my great honor on behalf of the Media Institute to present the 2025 Freedom of Speech Award to someone who has spent his entire career ensuring that innovation serves freedom and that free speech fuels progress. Please welcome to the stage Gary Shapiro.
Wow, it's a tough act to follow. Hans, actually, I was also talking about Sam and the commissioner and the fireman. Thank you, Sam, and thanks to Dick Wiley, Rick Kaplar, and the Media Institute. What an organization. It's so important because it's committed to keeping the First Amendment the very backbone of our democracy. I am really touched and honored by this recognition, and it's so meaningful coming from an organization that has fought for decades to preserve our very important First Amendment freedom. And thanks, Sam, for that introduction. I think I was more nervous about your introduction than me speaking up here. And you didn't disappoint with a combination of facts, humor, history, and I just want to say I was not the head for 40 years of the organization. As my son says, what was it like, Dad, when you were young during the dinosaurs? But your leadership, Sam, actually, from heading the Washington Bureau of CNN to shifting over to C-SPAN, reflects your dedication to transparency and helping Americans actually understand what's happening here in this city, this important nation's capital. But what happens in Washington actually matters, not only to us, but to the world. Our democracy and our freedoms have long been models for others. For some 250 years, our ability to argue, debate, clash, and ultimately come together has not been a weakness. It's actually been our superpower. The First Amendment was the very first improvement of the Constitution for a reason. It ensures not only that we speak, but we can also receive and we can hear one another. Free speech is America's secret sauce. It's fueled our economy, expanded opportunity, and made us the most innovative nation in the world's history. It's no coincidence, actually, if you think back to our short existence of 250 years, that the world's greatest breakthroughs in technology, from the microchip to AI to the internet, happened here. Why? Because it's nearly impossible to build technologies that answer questions in societies where asking questions can get you punished, silenced, or even jailed. But the truth is, both parties have at times flirted with censorship, trying to control what Americans can see, say, and share. But our First Amendment stands as a shield against that impulse, protecting not just the comfortable or polite speech, but speech that unsettles the powerful. That's the point. Franklin Roosevelt, while leading the nation through the Great Depression and World War II, famously said, "To announce there must be no criticism of the president is not only patriotic and servile, it is morally treasonous to the American public." The right to criticize our leaders isn't optional. It's the beating heart of American self-government. At CTA and the industry I represent, we live by that principle. We fought back against the Stop Online Piracy Act, SOPA, and the Protect IP Act, PIPA, when they threatened to break the open internet. Thank you, Congressman Isa, for leading that unwinnable battle. And that was, everyone said we were going to lose. The fact that it went through a congressional committee unanimously and then was totally reversed in a matter of a few days was a tribute to you and Senator Wyden standing up at CES and telling the world that you were going to defeat it, and you did. We challenged the efforts also to tear down Section 230, that law that protects free expression online. And we continue to stand up against regulatory overreach that risks freezing innovation and handing the future to our global competitors. These fights share a common thread: incumbents versus innovators. Entrenched interests trying to weaponize government to block the future. And innovators, startups, and consumers push back to build it. Dissent keeps us honest. Debate keeps us strong. But before I go further, I want to pause to recognize some other honored guests here. Hans Vestberg and FCC Commissioner Trusty. Hans, you have spoken at CES 4 times in 2 different companies. And I want to let you know, as a featured speaker and keynoter, I might add, but I want to say that you were there when, during COVID, when things were down, you stood up, and you stood up for us, and we appreciate it. But you also stand up, and the way you speak, even the way you don't wear socks is your free expression. I obviously don't represent the sock manufacturers of America. And Commissioner Trusty, you are new in your job, but as a staffer on both sides of the Hill and as an employee of Verizon, I didn't know you then, of course, but you have stood up with the excitement and wonder and desire to do a great job that is coming through clear to everyone who meets you. And I wish you great luck and success in your career, and I'm sure you'll have it. I also want to thank a few special friends and allies here tonight and tell you why I'm thanking them. Because they are people who share the conviction that progress depends on open dialogue and the courage to speak the truth. First, thank you, Congressman Darrell Issa. I've already given you an applause line, but I'll give you another. He was our former chairman of our board. He still thinks he signed my employment contract. But he's been a champion of innovation and a longtime defender of free markets. Did I say free markets? Take that out. Just free expression at this point. That was an inside joke that some of you will figure out if you ask any of our employees. Mary Brady, the president and CEO of the Economic Club of Washington. She convenes conversations that bridge policy and business. And I want to thank a few people here that are actually from my board and are judging me right this second as to how I'm doing. Dr. Himana Gates of Build Within, whose work as an immigrant. She is so special. She's created jobs, and she's opening doors, focusing on apprenticeships, focusing on people working with skills that we need now and the next generation of innovators must have. Pat Lavelle is here, my real boss. Chairman of our compensation committee, that's the boss. A lifelong champion of American manufacturing and free enterprise, and CTA standing up for important principles, even if they disagree with the government that's in place. Debbie Tellamore of Stealth Mode, pushing new frontiers, cybersecurity, and so many other things with a great big company experience and tiny company experience. And John Taylor, a Media Institute supporter and great CTA volunteer who diplomatically bridges the gap between broadcasters and tech companies. I don't know how he does it. I also want to recognize and thank Joel Poznansky of Columbia Books and Information Services, whose leadership demonstrates how values and innovations can coexist. And going back to the case that Sam was kind enough to talk about, the Sony Betamax case, I work closely with Bob Schwartz of Constantine Cannon, Gary Slayman of Slayman Consulting, 2 voices, peers of mine who understood the strong advocacy and open discourse strengthen democracy, even if it's by people with different views and new ideas. And just to tell you the truth about that, we were going up against the most powerful organizations, the MPAA and RIAA, and they really thought they would just squash us like a new ant. And we had, in addition to Gary and Bob, there was many others, including David Rubenstein and Ron Brown, who was tragically killed in his government service, who stood up, and we just always challenged each other, and we actually outsmarted them, plus we were right, and we were the new guys. And thankfully, we did win at the Supreme Court because that opened up everything else in terms of technology innovation without fear of litigation. But part of that same effort was Gigi Sohn, who founded Public Citizen. And I have to say, since 3 Georgetown grads were sitting here together, she's now she's a Georgetown law, and so good for her. She defends, still today, a robust internet and informed public. And I want to recognize 2 others that are here, Jennifer Taylor of NVTC and Jay Timmons of NAM. They fight for innovation in industry and the workers who make progress possible. And Jay Timmons is one of the very, very few courageous association leaders who's willing to speak out against existing challenges we might face with government. This isn't like the State of the Union where the Republicans applaud and the Democrats. It is. All right, well, here's someone we could always all applaud for because everyone uses the word love. He has a divinity degree. Jeff Joseph of Starlight Public Affairs. He also was a double CTIA alumni, respected tech policy strategist and communications leader. And of course, my former roommate in 2 of my weddings, witnessed my divorce. The Honorable Don Upson of GBEF, who is a mentor, a friend, a visionary. You heard about what he did. You heard about the fact that he created a commission which actually created the laws in Virginia. Now everyone in the world follows, and we adopted. We went around the world together, and we basically testified to different legislatures, spoke to different world leaders, and everyone adopted the same set of laws, which allows commercial signatures, business over the internet, because it wasn't cool when we started out to do business on the internet. And last but not least, you think these are the 2 best words you'll ever hear, but it's not. But I do want to recognize the CTA staff that are here and all those others that you represent, and those staff that are here that are actually some alumni are in the organization, in the audience. You all pull in the same direction, fighting for the cause of innovation and making the world better for the people that live in it. So thank you so much to all the CTA staff. But to head towards the finish line, our nation's greatness doesn't come from our uniformity, because we're not uniform. It comes from our diversity of people, immigrants, ideas, and perspectives. Thank you. We are not a nation bound by one history, religion, or culture, but we share a belief that individual rights matter, that government must be limited, and free enterprise and free expression are inseparable. The First Amendment is actually our infrastructure. It's our invisible highway of ideas. It allows us to speak, to hear, and to listen, to challenge, but also to learn. And as we confront rapid change, AI, global conflict, tariffs, economic change, it will be tested again and again. So our challenge for everyone here who believes in this cause is to defend the First Amendment, not only in law, because it really only applies to government action, but in spirit as well as when we communicate with each other. We should do so with kindness and courage and honesty. We can and we must actually disagree without dehumanizing. We should argue without silencing. If we do that, America will continue to be a beacon, as President Reagan said, a shining city on a hill. Its light fueled by the enduring flame of free speech. In closing, I want to thank the Media Institute for standing up and believing in the First Amendment. You and others are the guardians of the most powerful technology ever invented, which is the free exchange of ideas. You remind us that speech, even uncomfortable, controversial, inconvenient speech, is the foundation of all innovation, discovery, and freedom. As long as we protect the freedom to speak, we protect the freedom to think, to build, and to dream. And that means America's best days are still ahead. Thank you. Who's coming up? The what? Oh. You give me bad advice. Come on,
Thank you, Gary. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our evening program, but before we do, let's give a round of applause to our great presenters, Todd and Sam Feist, yes, of C-SPAN. Got it. And finally, of course, to our distinguished speaker and our award winners, Let's give them a real round of applause. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good night, and have safe journeys home. Yeah.